Shalom, I want to talk to you about this week's Torah portion. This week's portion is Emor. It's from Leviticus 21:1 through 24:23. And the Haftarah is Ezekiel 44, verses 15 through 31. And just like I spoke recently, it gets its name from the very first sentence. In English, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, speak to the priests." And in Hebrew, it says, Vayomer Adonai el Moshe Emor el HaKohanim. So that's where where the name comes from this week. This portion talks about rules about cleanliness for the priests, what would happen if they were touch a dead body, or something about who God wanted the priests to marry, about those that had physical defects, and also about sacrifices that had blemishes or defects, because he always wanted us to bring him the very best that we have. As we go on in this portion, we get to chapter 23, which will always hold a special place in my heart, because Leviticus 23 tells us very specifically about the appointed times of the Lord, which in Hebrew is Moedei Adonai. These are like times that God put on his calendar that he especially wanted to meet with us, because it was that important to him. Our relationship with him means so much to him. So we start off with the very first appointed time, which is the Shabbat, meaning we have a holiday, an appointed time with the Lord every week, which is the Shabbat. We go right in then to what we would kind of call the main 7 feasts of the Lord, which is Passover, which we recently had, the unleavened bread, which is in that same week, and first fruits. All of those 3 holidays kind of come together, and we see how beautifully this is a foreshadowing of what Yeshua would do and be for us. And then we come in after the first fruits, 50 days later, then we have the Feast of Weeks, what we call Shavuot. All of those first 4 have been fulfilled in Messiah, but there's 3 more appointed times that have not yet been fulfilled, and that they come in the fall. The first one, of course, being the Feast of Trumpets, and then Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and then the Feast of Tabernacles, or what we call Sukkot. So that's a very, very special chapter. Then we go on into chapter 24. Also, throughout this whole portion, God keeps emphasizing his holiness, and that he wants a holy people unto himself. Like, it's so special that he wants us to be separated and different from everybody else, because he wants us to be his precious sons and daughters, and he is a holy and a good God. In chapter 24, we have a very interesting story, and this is what happens in verse 11. The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name, meaning God's name, and cursed. And so they brought him to Moses. And then in verse 12, it says they put him in custody so that the command of the Lord might be made clear to them. In verse 13, then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, bring the one who has cursed outside the camp, and let all who heard him lay their hands on his head. Then let all the congregation stone him. You shall speak to the sons of Israel, saying, if anyone curses his God, then he will bear his sin. Moreover, the one who blasphemes the name of the Lord shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall certainly stone him. And once again, we see God standing up for the holiness of his beautiful name. The last thing we see in this portion is the law of exact retribution, which is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I want to end today by what Yeshua said about that exact verse. And if we go to Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 38, these are the words of Yeshua. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him too. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And I would just add to that same word, you're to be holy as your heavenly Father is holy. We are to be a people set apart for our amazing God, to give him glory. Have a great day.